Okay, to do the front wheel bearing, which is the first part you take off, you can actually undo at the top here and slide the kingpin out and have the whole kingpin out on the bench, but a lot of times there's no need. You can just do a wheel bearing on the tractor. Now you'll notice I've got a couple of safety stands under here, and I also have a couple of wooden wedges banged in under the axle over there, and that'll help just stabilise the axle so it's not rocking back and forth on the pivot. So I'll just come down here. So what we need to do first is take this cap off, and I find sometimes just a little tap there does wonders. Now you'll need your 1 1/16 spanner, and I like to have the wheel nuts on and come in under the wheel nuts to hold it, and that way you're not wrecking any threads. And look at that, that was easy. And look, sometimes they are really easy like that, and other times you'll just fight and fight and fight with them. So now these had oil in them originally, a lot of these TE20 hubs. So with the oil in them, you'd probably need something underneath to catch the oil. There's a bulletin that I can show you that says about replacing them with grease. So this one's had grease, and that was a standard replacement. It came out in a bulletin and it was okay to do that. Now you're going to need a set of pliers or side cutters or something, and Farmer Brown here, he's put a little bit of fencing wire in here. And look, it just doesn't matter, you know, it did the job. It's supposed to have a split pin, or some people call them cotter pins, depending where you live. But so we'll pull that out, discard that. I don't like to use them again. If you're in a pinch out in the mulga, just go for it and use it. Now I think this is a lot bigger, 1 1/4. I've got an 1 1/8 spanner here. No, it's 1 1/4. Okay, I'll just grab that spanner. It's 1 1/4, and you can see that's way too tight. I don't know if you can see it wants to go back and drop down into the bearing. So we'll pop this out and have a look. This nut's been off a few times. You can buy the nut if you need a new one, but it'd have to be pretty crook. You hear my chair squeaking a little bit, but it's just how I can get down here without kneeling, buggering my knees up. So old age. Okay, so the nut's off. Now there's a washer that comes down. This is a tabbed washer, as in it's got a tab that sits in this little slot on the kingpin, so that if the bearing decides to turn, it doesn't actually turn on the nut and want to undo the nut. So you can just see the tab there. And the nut here, look, even though it's been bashed around a bit, looks like it's been bashed with a punch and all that, that will tidy up okay. Certainly serviceable. I won't tell anyone it's in there if you don't. Okay. There's the outer bearing. There's the inner bearing. That inner bearing's a bit second hand. It's not looking real good. I'll get rid of this. And that bearing there, if you were doing a not replacing the kingpin, you would have to come in through the back there with a tapered punch, and it shouldn't be hard to get off. There you go, easy as that. Now put that out of the way. Now this hub here, I'm expecting to find a couple of little dimples that hopefully I can show you. That side's not too bad, must be over this end here, or it might have just been the bearing. I was expecting to actually see like big ridges in the bearings here, but look, they're not there. It must have just been on the inner of this fella here, I would imagine. But anyway, that's the bloody dirty looking thing, isn't it? Fancy this, mechanicking and I'm getting dirty. Okay, so I'll just tidy this up a bit. Now you can see these kingpins are surprisingly cheap, really, and there should be a seal in the back here somewhere, and I just can't see. Some had them and some didn't. It's just a just in here to keep the dirt out. You have your cup in here, and there was often a seal in the back there. But I'll just see. I can't see one anywhere here, but I can certainly feel the gravel and the grit in here. But there's none there. It hasn't been put in. So I should be able to show you. In the S.2970 kit, there's the seal. So normally that seal will sit in the back here and sit up on this seal surface there. So the bearing sits up against that shoulder there, this radius shoulder. That has a radius, just a point of interest, is you'll notice that some of these things have a radius there, and a part of engineering practice is if you brought that bearing surface along and just had a really sharp edge there, you build a stress into that shaft. So by having a radiused edge, the radius makes it stronger, far stronger on that corner there. So the bearing slides up here, pushes up against the radius, and that seal should seal in this surface here, but like it was missing on this one. So that's how we get just the front bearing off. We'll cover putting the bearing back and adjusting it and all that up shortly, but we'll move on to the kingpin. Now we can cover the wheel bearings. So this is the right hand hub. It's still got the seal in the back of it. If you remember, the left hand one didn't have the seal, it was missing at the time. So this has the seal still in there, and the bearing cups are in the other side. So look, all I like to do is set them in a vise, open the vise up so it just sits nice and flat on the vise, just supports it properly, and lean through here and get a punch and just punch the back of the bearing. And so what comes out the other side is that. The bearing pushes the seal out and away you go. So that's one side done. Now, to get this cup out, if you feel inside there's just a little, you can get to a little piece of the cup. Now, some tractors, they actually have instead of a complete round shoulder behind the cup, they have a couple of little pieces out of it where you can punch out the cup, but these don't do that. This one is a full circle. Yep, full circle all the way. So what we need to do now is get a rag and clean my hands. Dirty bugger, eh? Now, find I like to use a pin punch with this, and find one with a fairly sharp edge. So you can just come down as straight as you can and sort of couple of taps each way. And it is, sometimes it grabs your finger, this, because it slides off before you're ready for it. This one's not going to give us much joy there, I believe. I'll go and grab a cold chisel so I can get a couple of sharp corners going on it. Okay, with the front hub sitting in the vise here, we've knocked the back out. Now, this screwdriver here, it's one that I use for this job sometimes. Now, it's just a flat blade screwdriver, nothing special about it, but it has a shank going all the way through. And look, it's not too bad for this job. It comes in, and because it has a small edge here, it will hop in behind the bearing there. So we'll give this one a go, just see. It's a good way to get your knuckles in. So a couple that way, come down here, try and get it to bite in nicely on that lip, and as you get it away from the start, it does get easier. Okay, it feels like we're away there. And there's the bearing. So that's the cup that we just knocked out. So we can turn this fella over now. And my bice here has aluminium jaws in it, so we can come up firm against the studs. And once again, same thing, knock the cup out here. Now there is just absolutely bugger all room here to get this out. There's not enough shoulder for a proper punch to come on. Oh, just got me fingers. So we're just trying to, a couple of hits each way now. Oh, there it goes. Got me thumb on the way out. So that's it there, that's the bearing. So yeah, you can see that. Can you see that? Where's the light, Lance? Can you see that? There's a little lip right down in there where the bearing goes, and later on they actually ground them out. But we won't do that this time, we'll just tidy this up. I'll actually go and wash all this up now. I've got my little low light Batten 3 torch. Yeah, my little low light Batten 3 torch I did a review on a little while ago. Bloody cracker thing for doing this stuff. Anyway, we'll go and wash all this up. We'll get it ready to assemble the bearings, and we'll assemble it all, and we'll go over and we'll sit it on a stub axle and set it up properly for you. Okay, I've cleaned all the housing here out, and I've got the Sparex S.2970 seal kit, and that seal kit consists of an outer bearing, which is a Kingpin type cup cone, tapered roller bearing, an inner bearing, which is the large one, and the seal, the dust seal. Now, what I always like to do with these seals is I've gone and I've sat that up on the spindle just to make sure everything's right. Looks okay here. Now, what I also like to do is I've gone to find a disc that will fit just in this lip here, and that little disc, it can go down through there, and I know that when I'm knocking the cup in, the outer cup in for this bearing, I know that that's going to come through there and clear nicely. And you can see getting it out there, it's sort of snug, but it's okay, it'll be fine. And then on the other side, I've done the same. So this little fella here is a 49mm disc. That's just out of my set. There's a 65 for the cup Oh, sorry, for the seal. 65, it could be a little bit bigger. I'll just grab that one that I dropped, and the one for the inner bearing is a 62mm cup. So I might just zoom in there a little bit, give you a bit more. You're off to the side a bit, but that lets me come in without buggering the hole, show up on you. So look, what we'll do to start with, I'll just take the vise in just so it supports that nicely. Now whenever you put a bearing in, a cup or a cone or anything like that, oil is your friend, lubricant is your friend. So make sure that's clean. Actually, I'd like that a little bit cleaner. It's got a few finger marks on it. Now it goes with the small edge out. So the numbers go in. And once that's started there, we can get the 49mm disc. Make sure it's clean too. Sit it there, then centralise this a little bit. We're going to come down that side. You can feel it's gone home hard there now. And we don't want to hit on the bearing surface, we want to make sure we hit on the edge. Now when we turn it over the other way to do the other bearing, what I actually did too, there's a 39mm come down through the back here, and the trouble I had getting it out with no lip, I ended up coming down with a 39, and that was enough to get the little cup out. So that was a good fix. I just had nothing to grab onto apart from that. So I'll just a nice clean bit of rag, run around the outside. It doesn't matter what oil you have here. I've just got a bit of gear oil in here at the moment. It was just a little bit in a tin that I wanted to use up. So once again, a bit of oil on the outside. Try and get him sitting nice and straight. Now the 62mm cup, wipe on your pants, make sure it's clean, don't let your missus see you. You can feel that's gone hard. Now she comes. Now at this stage, don't put the seal in. We need to pack some bearings with grease and put those fellas in, so I'll just give this a wipe once more. Now I'd like to bring your attention to this little plug there. Now in the early days these hubs had 1/3 of a litre of oil in them, and that's why they had like a lip seal at the back here, and where the screw goes into the front here, where the cap goes on, it had a gasket. And I haven't seen them with a gasket for a long time really, but there's a service bulletin, and I will see if I can put it in here. And that's courtesy, the service bulletin's courtesy of the Friends of Ferguson Heritage, the archive. And at some stage they've said that don't worry about the oil so much, it's fine to put grease in there and things like that, which is what we do nowadays. It's just common practice. So what I like to do is get some grease, and there's a little reservoir in there. I just like to put a little bit of grease in that reservoir. Now there's a couple of lines of thought with that. Some people say you don't need it, you know, it's a waste, and I always think, oh, if it gets hot and goes a bit fluid, well, you know, when the tractor parks up, you'll have a heap of good grease there. So to get the grease on your hand, make sure your hand's clean, then work that into the bearing. Work him in. And when that grease has gone right through the bearing, just squeeze him in. And so the grease on your hand, you bring him up and you actually force it through the rollers. So you know the rollers have plenty of grease in them for their job. Okay, so we'll sit that bearing in there. Now we'll grease the other bearing while our hands are dirty. Same thing, all we're doing is trying to force the grease in through the needles so it's right in. And when you can look at the bearing and you have the oil, have the grease all the way through. Now this is just Valvoline wheel bearing grease. I don't think it's anything special. It's just a grease that we're going to use for this job. Now once that cone is in there, I like to put any extra grease on my hands, I just put around here. I put a little bit in so when it turns we'd have some lubrication. Now I'll go and wipe my hands clean and we can just bump this seal in now. Now there's a little lip down there. The seal can go down and just touch that lip. So actually this other disc might be a better size for that. How's that one? Oh, that's good, Lance. I'll just check. So that cup there, or the cone, you can see that's moving in there, so the seal's not rubbing hard against that. And that will do there. Now we'll take this over, we'll set the camera up and we'll put this on and we'll adjust the wheel bearing. Okay, we're over at the stub axle now and this is the left hand side that we fitted the Kingpin to. Now the new seal sits up in here and the bearing sits up in this groove there. It just fits that groove nicely. So we've got the seal in the bearing, we've got just the cone, we've got a little bit of grease in the middle in the reservoir there. So we slide this in and then we just work him around a little bit and you'll feel it just go on into the seal there. So once it's done that, we pick up our outer wheel bearing. I've got it all jacked up just for the camera, so I think it'll be good. So we put that bearing in and I'll have to give that a little bit of a tap in. So that's just a firm fit and that's lovely, that's how we need it. Then we put this keyed washer. Now it doesn't matter which way that goes, that's a hardened washer. So that goes in behind the bearing and then we bring the nut over the top. Now we do have a split pin to go through that nut and it'll sit like that. Something like that. So sometimes it's better to shorten that first, but we'll just see how it goes on this one, eh? Okay, so let's tighten that up. We've got our 1¼ inch spanner here. We'll just take him up until you just feel it firm up just a little bit. Give it a turn. Now keep turning it as you go. Now the reason we're turning it is that on a tapered roller bearing, we want to know that all the rollers are sitting at home in their right place. So I just read the book on how the book suggested to do this, and I read one book that said just do this up to 63 foot-pounds, then click it back on, and that wasn't on this. But the TE20 manual said tighten it up until it locks up and then back it off to the nearest the nearest hole for your split pin. And I thought, oh geez, I'm not sure about that idea. But I'll show you how I like to do it. Now I take it up firm, then you can feel that's firm rolling it. Go both ways. And I'm going to turn it, I'm turning a good half a dozen times. Then I'll just nip him up again. Now, you can just feel there's a bit of drag on that, and you know, if you jack the tractor up and you felt that, you think, oh, that's just a little bit too tight. So we'll just back him off. And where's the hole for the... So that's the hole there. Now, you can feel that, see the nut there? The nut is finger tight there. That's a little bit loose. Look, it feels good, but I think we'll just go up one cancellation. So if we go up that one, that's quite firm. Look, I think that's too tight. So we'll just back him off. You can see that sort of just wants to go. And I'm feeling for forward and back movement there. There's none there. So that keeps, you can see once I take my hand off it, it just continues turning for a bit. Now we'll go up to the next cancellation. Just about there. And you see that doesn't go anywhere. But look, I'm going to leave it up that one slightly tighter just for the moment. Now look, the reason is it's brand new bearings. I expect them to settle just a little. Another thing that you can do with these, or with any bearing, is give them a bit of a tap each way. And that's just making sure that the bearings are seated properly and they haven't moved anywhere, or if they're going to move, that's it. But look, that's okay, that's pretty good. If I left it back one, where the nut was just wobbling around on the thread, this nut would end up wearing that thread out. You know, it would wobble, it would move a little bit, and so that's why we've taken it up one one harder. So I can just show you that again, as in, see that there, so that's not, I'd just like that next one up. So I don't want it rattling around, just having the split pin holding it. I'd prefer a little bit of meat of the nut and a little bit of tension there holding it. So I think that feels okay. I'll get the split pin. Now use the biggest split pin that you can, that will fit into the hole correctly, and then bring him right in. Now, this outer one comes out, and I was always taught to fold them back over onto itself, but I might shorten this up a little bit. And I've worked with other fellas and I said, what are you doing that for? And they said, oh, we just open them up a bit, but I was taught to go right over with that one there. Then this one here, I'll pull him forward a little, shorten it quite a bit. Oh, there we go. And with the screwdriver, I'll just come around and get my knee in there, and we just and what we're looking to do there is give this clearance, so when this cap's on, it's not going to foul on the leg of this fella here. Now, the grease that's in that bearing now, that'll stay for ages. You know, on a car you get 40,000-50,000 Ks, and you pull it apart later on and you hardly have anywhere or any bloody grease in it from the factory, to tell you the truth. They don't overdo it. So all we need to do now is, now originally this had a little gasket on it, and the gasket was to hold the oil in. It's not so necessary now, but what I do sometimes is your Loctite 515 or your Bearco R51. I put a little bit of that there, so it's just to stop it weeping. This tractor's never going to be painted. Once that wheel goes down, I'll probably just do a re-tighten. I might be able to just nip that up a little bit. And that's the wheel bearing done. So hopefully that helps you do your own. It's not a technically difficult job. It's a pretty easy job. What I have to do now, I need to put the grease nipple in and pump a bit of grease up in through here. Now, by popping a bit of grease in here, so you get a little bit out each end, you can see the felt just wearing there. If it's full of grease, it's hard for moisture to get in there, but on my tractors here, they don't get left out and things like that, so it should be okay. But anyway, hopefully that helps you do your own kingpin bushes. Replace the kingpins if you need to, or just replace the bushes if you need to, and replace your wheel bearings. I've got a couple of tyres to put on these rims, these old rims that came with the tractor. They have a really lovely old patina, but the tyres are absolutely toast, so we're going to put a brand new set of tyres on. Then hopefully when we get this front axle sorted, we can sit it back down, put the radiator in, and we'll get a start out of it.